Welcome back to the Road to Doomsday. I'm in Film Snob HQ. We are talking about Marvel movies. I think we're about 30 projects in, give or take. I didn't count the number of films before I started this one. We have now finished the second era of Marvel films, what I refer to as the Paramount era, or the MCU Phase 1, as they refer to it. This phase, we only had 10 movies, mostly MCU. We had a couple of X-Men films, we had a Punisher film, and we had a Ghost Rider film as well. So one thing that I noticed watching this era of films, first of all, is consistency. Because Paramount is putting out the majority of Marvel films, there is a tone, there is a look, and there is what will soon be known as the MCU style. Every Marvel film looks very similar, even though they're tonally quite different. Iron Man, very upbeat, very rock and roll, very fun. As though the first one is very dark. Captain America, very stoic, very military, very much a war film. Incredible Hulk is a monster movie in the daylight most of the time, and Thor is this kind of Shakespearean, kind of elegant, regal theatre piece, with wonderful CGI and space and stuff like that. And then Avengers seamlessly blends it all together. In addition to those, we have a couple of Fox releases. We have a really wonderful Fox movie and a film that people didn't receive too well with X-Men Origins. Feels like an X-Men film, looks like an X-Men film, just doesn't quite deliver the way that X2 did. And then we have, as I said before, arguably the best X-Men film and one of the best Marvel films of all time, X-Men First Class, which is tonally and visually different from the other X films. It's on a larger scope, and I think what happened was Fox saw what the MCU were doing. They saw Paramount's Iron Man, they saw Incredible Hulk, they saw a few other things, and then with the box office and critical response to Wolverine, they were like, we need to shift, we need to start fresh. They bring in Matthew Vaughn and they give us this grand, epic 1960s mutant drama, and it's incredible. We also have one Sony film, two Sony films. I believe Punisher is Sony, both under the Marvel Knights banner, which I forgot to talk about in my videos previously, but we have Punisher Warzone, which is not as dry and as dark as the first one. It's dark, but it's very cartoonish and it almost exceedingly so. And we have Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which again, tonally is very different to the first Ghost Rider film, and it doesn't quite know where it fits. Sadly, the two Marvel Knights films, I think, are kind of back-to-back step down for the studio, the Marvel Knights studio films. Not as good as their previous incarnations. But overall, it's a really strong era. With only 10 movies, the previous one had something like 20. So to step down a little bit and only do 10, most of them coming from Paramount, you can see, even though there's not a cohesive plan with the first phase of the MCU, people keep saying, oh, there was a plan. Like, it was always meant to be Infinity Stones. It was always meant to be Thanos. Infinity Stone doesn't show up to Captain America. And it's not called an Infinity Stone until Infinity War, or maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, actually. So even though we're introduced to the Tesseract in 2011 and the Mind Stone in 2012, they're not referred to as Infinity Stones until 2014. It is a bit of a retcon. These are just Origins films. They're just showing the origins of these characters and trying to slowly lay the groundwork to hopefully incorporate them in one feature film. Avengers was considered a risk. They were like, we don't know if this is going to work. Like, the studios were nervous, audiences were confused, and then they dropped that trailer and everyone was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. So it took a little while. There wasn't a lot of confidence from the studios. Remember, this is the studio who only a few years prior were really hesitant about casting Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. But you cannot imagine that universe without him. So it was a slow and gradual process. So when people criticize the latest kind of phase of movies, phase 4 through 6 of the MCU, and say there's no plan, phase 1 didn't have a plan either. Other than, hey, maybe one day we'll get them in a movie together. The only common thread in those films really is Agent Coulson. He shows up and kind of is the glue of those movies. And sadly, we didn't talk about it in the Avengers discussion, but we do lose Coulson. He comes back later in a TV show, but he's never returned into the movies. I just realized in my Avengers film, I didn't talk about who I thought was going to show up in Doomsday or Secret Wars. What an idiot I am. So let's have a look. Iron Man, we've covered. Black Widow, we've covered. Captain America, we've covered. Thor, we've covered. Loki, we've covered. Cap, we've covered. I don't think we've talked about Hawkeye. I think he's going to show up somewhere. He might not show up in Doomsday, but I think he will show up at some point. We're going to get Hawkeye again. That makes total sense to me. Thanos is teased at the end of the Avengers. I think we're going to get Thanos back. I think we are. I think we get a variant of him. I don't know why you wouldn't. I would love to see, you know, we've seen that kind of viral comic book panel of like Doctor Doom ripping out Thanos' spine. I would love that. I would also like them teaming up together. So I'm kind of happy either way. I would like Agent Coulson to return. I don't know if I've talked about this yet. I think there's a room for him to show up. It would be a very cool Easter egg, although I don't know how many current Marvel fans would remember him. Those who are watching the films like I do and watch them regularly, they will. But if you're a casual viewer, if you're a general audience, you may not remember Coulson, but I'd love for him to show up as well. All in all, I think it's an incredibly strong phase. There's a lot more consistency here than in the first phase, but there's less films, which means there's less good films. The Paramount stuff I cannot fault. There's one really good X-Men film, so I think there's 7 wonderful films and 3 fine movies in this phase. Our next era is going to be 2013 through till 2017. I want to say it is. No, that doesn't sound right. I think it's 2013 to 2016. I'll figure it out and I'll let you know in the next era anyway. We're doing more MCU. This is now the Disney era of MCU. Disney's officially owned the Marvel label and most of the Marvel properties. We have more Sony, we have more Fox. So we're in for a great time. We have The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which I really like. We have got Days of Future Past. We have Deadpool. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming our way. So this was kind of the building block phase, setting up a new kind of feel to the Marvel Universe. And the second phase is going to explode and get weird. And then we're going to go on from there. I will see you in the next video. We're going to start talking about the third era. And we're starting with The Amazing Spider-Man featuring the wonderful Andrew Garfield. I will see you all then.